Welcome to the next section of our lesson, and we are currently in Adobe Lightroom, and we're about to move over to Photoshop in just a second here. If you guys remember, we did this little shoot at the umbrellas, and it was right around the corner from this little winery and alley, and we shot there for just a couple minutes, if you remember, so we didn't overstay our welcome before this little restaurant opened. And because we had such a short amount of time to shoot, we really had to deal with the environment that we were given and everything that came with it, which included, if you remember, these pesky traffic cones, and they showed up in basically all of my images. There wasn't much I could do about it. I tried to blur them out in the background using a very shallow depth of field. As you can see here, we shot at f1.4, and I believe I shot a couple at 1.8 and f2 as well to really blur out that background, but this bright orange is still there. So I'm going to show you a couple ways that we can quickly correct this in Photoshop and make a final image. So as you can see, this image has already had some edits made to it. Here's the before, here's the after, and I want to preserve those edits when I take this into Lightroom. So I'm going to right click on this image, edit in, Adobe Photoshop, and what that's basically going to do is export our image as a high quality TIFF file, saving all our data, and it's going to open that up in Photoshop. So now we can go over to Photoshop and we can see that our image here at full quality is open in Photoshop, and again you can see our pesky traffic cone. So I'm going to show you guys a couple ways to get rid of this traffic cone. What I'm going to do for starters is duplicate this layer. We can either hit duplicate layer, okay, or we can also hit Command J on a Mac to duplicate that layer. I like to create a duplicate layer to work on just in case I mess something up really bad. I can always go back to this background layer, and you can see that layer is locked here, so I can't do anything. Could not do anything because the layer is locked. I can't make any edits to this layer, and that is a good thing for now. We will be making it on our destructive layer up here on top. One of the great things about Photoshop is layers, so that if you mess up, you don't mess up your whole image. Work in little bits and pieces like a puzzle. I'm going to zoom in here to 200%, and if you're doing little edits like this in the details of your image, make sure you're working at least at 100%, if not greater. So we have our top layer selected here. I can even turn off this background layer just so we know that we're on our top layer here. And I'm going to do a quick little selection with the lasso tool. We will select the bottom of our cone. Just a very rough selection is good. And then I will shift select this top part of our cone right there. And then shift select will add to our selection, and alt select will take away from our selection. So we'll undo that right there. Now we have our traffic cone pretty basically selected. I'm going to feather this edge just a little bit. I'm going to go to modify, feather, 50 pixels is good. And now what we're going to do is reduce the saturation of this bright orange and see what that looks like. So we're going to image, adjustments, hue and saturation. You can also hit Command U on your keyboard for the shortcut. And instead of going through and trying to guess at what color this is, we can hit this little targeted adjustment tool. Click that. It gives us a little eyedropper so we can select the orange, and then I'm going to drag to the left to desaturate. I can also increase the saturation within our mask, but I'm going to desaturate. And because we created this little lasso selection mask, you can notice it's not selecting anything outside of it, and we're not affecting these skin tones. If I were to try and do that without the mask, you can see if I hit Command U and open this up and select the orange, we have desaturated our skin tones because they are so close to the color of our traffic cone. So let's go back to where we were just a second ago. Again, we'll create that quick selection and then select this orange up here as well. And then we will go to select, modify, feather our selection, 50 pixels is good. And then again, we will select our orange and desaturate. That looks a little bit strange back there still. So I'm also going to turn down the brightness to really make that recede into the background. I'll hit OK. Hit Command D to deselect. And you can see that orange traffic cone just disappeared back there. It just looks like a little post or something back there in the shadows. And since your eye does not go directly to that bright orange hue, you're not even going to notice anything is back there. This just looks like some yellow rope or a yellow chain or something like that. And it's not really distracting because we have these bits of yellow all over in the image. So I think that looks pretty good. Let's take a look at the before and after. We'll turn our background layer back on that is unedited. And then there's the before, the super bright traffic cone. And there is after. Makes a huge, huge difference. Now this hue and saturation method may not work for everything, so I'm going to show you one more method. We're going to select our top layer, delete that, hit OK, and we will duplicate our background layer again to start off with a fresh layer. So let's go in, we'll zoom into 100%. Actually, we'll zoom into about 200%. And now we're going to try our clone stamping tool. Basically what the clone stamp tool does is copy and paste one part of your image to another. So we'll select the part of our image we want to sample from. For example, if we wanted to sample from this dress, we will hold the Option key on a Mac, click, let go, and then now we can paste that part of the image over to this part of the image. So what you want to do is select a similar part of the image to what you're going to paste over so it looks natural. So what I'll do is I'll hit Alt, click over here, and then I can go in and start painting over here on top of the traffic cone. Now that doesn't look super natural. I'll go in here and maybe sample from some other bits over here. But again, nobody should be really looking into this area. Once we cover that up, yeah, it just looks like a mess of chairs and bars. That looks not too bad over there. And then now let's get rid of this part over here. Let's sample from this part of the table. Line up the table here and just kind of paint that in. Not too bad. This isn't too distracting, but I'm going to sample from over here and just kind of, let's try a slightly different sample. That looks good. Paint down a little bit. Oh, I'm getting part of that bar. I do not want to get that. That looks really weird. Let's try sampling up there. And just moving around. Get another sample from over here. Kind of paste in right there. Whoops, I'm getting more of that bar again. This is a lot of playing with things and just trying to kind of tweak them to get them right. There we go. That looks pretty good. And again, that was at 300%. If we zoom out, you can't even tell. Nobody's going to be pixel peeping at 300% into your image and wonder what's going on here. But again, that is just a very quick and dirty 10-15 second way of getting rid of that traffic cone. Obviously, you can spend as much time as you want being very meticulous, painting things in, painting things out, or if you're editing hundreds of wedding photos, for example, you may have to be kind of quick and dirty. But again, it's blurry in the background. Nobody's going to be looking at it because there's no giant orange traffic cone anymore, just like nobody's going to be digging around and looking at any of these other blurry parts of your image. So again, we can turn this layer off and watch that traffic cone disappear as easily as that. And then all I have to do is save this image out of Photoshop, File, Save As, select where I want to save this image. Do I want to save it in the same folder? Again, I will probably save it in another folder called Edits, and then save it as a high quality JPEG. So that is really it for this tutorial on how to get rid of some pesky, distracting elements in your portraits. There are dozens of ways that you can eliminate distracting elements from your images. Those are just two quick and dirty ways that I use all the time, and that will get you started with removing pesky elements from your photographs. So good luck shooting, and we'll see you in the next lesson.